Major breaking news, and I told you so. The President of the United States, Donald J. Trump, is now working with Mike Johnson, the leader of the House, to do what is known as recision, which is to effectuate and put into law the cuts to the federal budget identified by Elon Musk and Doge as efforts to identify fraud and waste in our federal government, and there's a lot of it. This is just the tip of the iceberg and just the start. But the process of recision under the Impoundment Act has just begun. Let's break it down and reaffirm what we talked about a few days ago to make you the smartest person in the room. Hey folks, I'm Mark Smith, host of the Four Boxer Diner, proud American gun owner, constitutional attorney, member of the United States Supreme Court Bar, and I'm proud to say the top voice of the Second Amendment in America. Thank you, 2025 Gundies Awards. All right, folks, so the ball is rolling, and it's a good ball, and it's a good roll, and it's going downhill, and that is the start of slowly but surely cutting away at the federal budget. It takes time, it takes effort. Just to jog your memory, there's been some kerfluffle going on, a little bit of kerfluffle here. Disconnect. Encouraged by the mainstream media, by people that don't quite understand the legal niceties associated with federal budgeting, which, frankly, you're better off if you don't know what I'm about to tell you, but you're going to have to learn it anyway to be the smartest person in the room, and that is this. As we've covered before, it's very important to understand the difference between recision and reconciliation. Specifically, as we've talked about before, the big, beautiful bill, which the House has passed and the Senate's working on, among other great things in this big, beautiful bill, is the removal of suppressors from the National Firearms Act. And maybe, just maybe, if we get lucky, the Short Act will be part of that, and short barrel rifles and short barrel shotguns will be removed as well. But even if we just get suppressors out of the NFA, that will set a fantastic precedent and be a great start to dismantling federal gun control law. A lot more work to be done, of course, but every step is important. As they say, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step, and we're many steps beyond a single step when it comes to dismantling gun control in America. A lot more work to be done. Now, with this said, though, we've talked in detail about the importance of President Trump and his administration succeeding all across the board, including with economics, because this is what a lot of people vote on. If Donald Trump gets voted out of office, or his agenda, or his Make America Great agenda, obviously he won't get voted out because he's term limited. But the point is, if his team gets voted out, or we lose the midterms, bad things will occur. Bad things will occur to the Second Amendment. Bad things will occur, regulatory reform and all sorts of things. And that will be bad for the Second Amendment and America. So with that said, it was very important to understand that under the big, beautiful bill that's been passed through the House and will likely get passed through the Senate at some point soon, that is using the process for reconciliation. The reason why you need to know that is because that requires only a majority vote in the United States Senate, and thus the Democrats are not going to be able to legally filibuster that big, beautiful bill. And that big, beautiful bill can only do certain things dealing with mandatory spending versus discretionary spending and so on. And a lot of the Doge cuts that were proposed by Elon Musk and his Doge team cannot legally be dealt with in the big, beautiful bill and the process of reconciliation, which deals with sort of a specialized budgeting process for the federal government. However, as I explained to you in a prior video, there is a separate process known as recision under the Federal Impoundment Act that is designed specifically to make permanent to the sorts of things that Doge has uncovered in terms of the waste. And that process of recision is separate from the process of reconciliation. The process of reconciliation will be how the Republicans get the big, beautiful bill through the House, specifically the House and the Senate, using just a majority vote in the Senate, avoiding the Democratic filibuster. This will make permanent the Donald Trump first-term tax cuts, which are expiring this year. So if you don't make those permanent, you're going to have a massive tax hike in 2025, which will dramatically slow the economy, which will be very bad all the way around for the Trump administration and the Trump agenda, including his agenda on judges and the Second Amendment. Of course, that also includes all sorts of other tax cuts, like no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, I think potentially no tax on Social Security, and so on and so on. Now, with that said, though, we have to understand that Elon Musk and his Doge team has identified a lot of things that need to be cut. And although they legally cannot be cut under the reconciliation bill, the big, beautiful bill, they can be cut through the process of recision, which we've covered before. The process of recision, however, works in a little bit different way. The way the recision works is under the Congressional Budget and Impoundment Control Act of 1974. It is the White House, it is the president that must make the initial request to get the ball rolling for the process of recision, which is different than reconciliation. The way it works, as I've given you an example before, is this. Congress passes a budget that says we're directing the President of the United States to spend $1 billion on an airplane. And let's say the President of the United States says, you know what? I don't think we need this airplane. I don't think we should spend $1 billion on this airplane. But Congress passed a law that says you got to spend $1 billion on the airplane. So what do we do here? Well, there's a couple of different ways that can be addressed, but the obvious, easiest way to address it is through the process of recision. And all that really means at the end of the day is that Donald Trump, or the President of the United States, sends a note to Congress that says, under the Impoundment Act of 1974, I'm hereby asking the Congress to rescind the $1 billion allocation to buy this airplane because we don't need the airplane. And Congress, if both houses, the House and the U.S. Senate, both pass that or sign off on the president's rescission request, that $1 billion for that plane does not get spent. It's banked. It's put away forever. It goes away forever. And that is how these Doge cuts are going to get implemented bit by bit by bit. And there doesn't have to be a single request for rescission. There can be 1,000 of these. But the first one has just occurred. So I want to talk about this specifically. Donald J. Trump has finally used the recision, the Impoundment Act, to ask for rescission. Here is what he asked for specifically in his letter over to Congress today. In accordance with Section 1012A of the Congressional Budget and Impoundment Control Act of 1974, I herewith report 22 rescissions of budgetary authority, totaling $9.4 billion. The proposed rescissions affect programs of the Department of State, as well as the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, the United States Agency for International Development, the United States Institute for Peace, and other international assistance programs. The details of these rescissions are set forth in the enclosed letter from the Director of the Office of Management and Budget, signed Donald J. Trump, President of the United States. There you go, folks. That is, as I explained to you, the process of rescission starts with the White House writing a letter to Congress asking for the money that Congress had previously allocated to basically be pulled back. Now, how did Speaker Mike Johnson react to this request? Well, he put this out on X, the following statement thanking the president for this request. Here's what Leader Mike Johnson said from the House of Representatives today. Today, the House of Representatives has officially received the rescissions request from the White House to eliminate $9.4 billion in wasteful foreign aid spending at the State Department and USAID and the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, which funds NPR and PBS. Now that this wasteful spending by the federal government has been identified by Doge, quantified by the administration, and sent to Congress, House Republicans will fulfill our mandate and continue codifying into law a more efficient federal government. This is exactly what the American people deserve. Next week, we will put the rescissions bill on the floor of the House and encourage all our members to support this common sense measure. Fantastic. Fantastic. There is no excuse for the Republicans not to quickly pass this rescission bill at the request of President Donald Trump. And again, this is separate from reconciliation. They cannot be the same. There's legal reasons where the rescission process and the reconciliation process cannot touch fingers. This is not Mark Smith. This is not the Republicans. This involves federal law, budgetary rules, the Senate parliamentarian, filibuster rules, and so on. The bottom line is the process sometimes takes time and can be painful because government is not efficient. And remember, when the founding fathers set up our federal government, they didn't want the process to be that efficient. They wanted to be sort of inefficient because they thought that was ultimately a way to preserve our rights. Now, whether or not that succeeded or not is a whole separate discussion. But the point is that the process that Elon Musk and Donald Trump set in motion is now playing out. And again, this is not the end. This is the beginning of the beginning of paring back this federal government. And there has been decades and decades of ridiculous malfeasance and misspending on the part of our federal government and our politicians in Washington, D.C. and the swamp. It will not get fixed in months. It will take years. But the good news is, in my view, the trend is our friend. The process of identifying all the fraud, the scams, the wasteful spending, the interplay between the NGOs and our federal government and so on that has now been revealed by Doge and others is a great start, because you cannot fix the problem. You cannot cure the disease until you first and foremost diagnose it. And it is pretty clear that a lot of diagnosing has just occurred thanks to Doge and other people working alongside Doge to identify all this stuff. And the process of now curing the problem, cutting out the cancer, has begun with this very first request. And I'm sure it won't be the last, this request for these 22 recisions. And I look forward to these things being enacted. But again, I want you to be the smartest person in the room. And that's why I just really want you to understand the process of reconciliation to get the big, beautiful budget through the House and the Senate, and not to confuse that with a process of recision, which is about cutting specific types of programs. And they cannot overlap, because the things that recision can handle is different than the things that the reconciliation bill can handle. One is a hammer designed for hammering. One is a screwdriver designed for screwing. They're not the same. All right, folks, so there you have it. Hope you learned something here today. Make sure you follow me on X. Don't forget to subscribe both to YouTube and to Rumble for this 4 Boxes Diner channel. And I look forward to talking to you all again real soon here at the 4 Boxes Diner.
Orders up. Table 2A.